do the introduction first, and then we'll talk about the anti-war movement. And everybody's talking about Kamala Harris. She's going to change the tone. She's going to redefine herself. She's not Biden. And since the Democratic National Convention, what she said during the convention and the interview on CNN and wherever she had a chance, I don't feel or see any difference. Unwavering support of Israel, this tired neoliberal line, and Hamas is a terrorist organization, and all of this. So today we're going to talk to Coleen Rowley. She is, as you say, the retired FBI agent. Your notes or the whistleblowing about the terrorist attack on September 11. This notes was that you sent was before even 9/11 took place, and Time Magazine named you as a Person of the Year, along with other whistleblowers. So welcome to the show, Coleen. This is wonderful. I know you have been very active. You have been all over the places. You went to Washington, D.C. You just came back from Northfield. Tell us about the last visit to Northfield.
Yeah, since 9/11 and being a whistleblower about the fact that the United States use of proxy forces throughout the world to wage war, which is the easy way to wage war. And some of the proxy forces were Bin Laden and Al Qaeda, the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. And 9/11 is the second chapter of Charlie Wilson's war movie where it backfires. And that last chapter got cut out of the movie. So no one knows that this is a really bad tactic. And I've been protesting and writing and doing everything I can to try to reveal the fallacy of waging war for full spectrum dominance under the misguided notion that it's going to make us safer, because it's backfired many times. 9/11 was not the only time. And now here we are with supporting Israel's genocide. It's brought us up to this moment after 7 or 8 wars. I think at one point Obama was bombing 7 countries simultaneously, or his proxies, waging proxy war in 7 countries. But now we got brought up to the point where October 7th occurs, where the Palestinians try to fight back after 7 decades of repression and starvation and everything else. Israel then uses that to launch a genocide. And, in my background, I not only was a special agent, but I actually taught constitutional law. And I majored in international law in law school. And everything about the genocide is it's the worst crime possible. So when just to bring you up to Northfield, I made a banner that said, "Stop the genocide, ceasefire on children." We held it in many locations throughout the Twin Cities, over the highways, all over. Finally, took it to Milwaukee, to the Republican National Convention, and to Chicago for the Democrat National Convention, as well as local political events here in Minnesota. So last night, it was really very sickening to me personally, because there was a huge fundraiser for Angie Craig, the 2nd District Congresswoman. And she's really one of the most strident, to use a term, most strident Zionist supporting Congress people in the country. She even voted to censure her own Democrat colleague, Rashida Tlaib, right at the start. She said, I'm married to a Jewish woman, and Rashida Tlaib is Palestinian American, and I vote to censor her because she's speaking that Israel should stop its genocide. Unbelievable. She's careful with her words. She's just like Kamala and Biden. When they say they're seeking a ceasefire, they're not seeking a ceasefire. After several months, you'd think people would wake up and realize that they're not seeking a ceasefire. No, they're sending weapons and bombs to Israel. They just sent 20, 30 billion more to Israel just as they're saying this. I mean, you don't have to be an Einstein genius to figure out that they're lying about the seeking a ceasefire. And they're doing that for political purposes. This is so Harris can say she's seeking a ceasefire. So last night was very depressing because we probably saw well over 100 cars going in, not only to clap for this support of genocide by Angie Craig, not only to clap for her and to support her, to say, I'll vote for you. And again, these are the Democrats in Northfield, which is known as the most liberal. Actually, it is known as the most liberal enclave in the state, even though in our second district is kind of what you would say purple, kind of Republican. It's a mixture of Republican and Democrat, but Northfield is solidly Democrat always. And so here it was very depressing to watch 100 cars go by to go in to give her money, thousands of dollars. And so she can run ads on television to say that she's tough. Her ad now, Angie Craig's ad, is she's riding in a Jeep looking like she's a tough woman going fast. You know, and that's what appeals to people, apparently. I don't understand it, but she doesn't speak on issues. None of the politicians do, except for, again, the line that they're seeking a ceasefire. That's a complete lie.
You know, historically, Americans vote on local issues. They don't vote on international issues. When it comes to November, regardless of what's going on, people will talk about tax, unemployment, gay, marriage, very local and cultural hot button issues. Do you think this time it's going to be any different? You know, it's almost a year now. We've seen images. They don't control the images coming out of the war anymore, like in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now people, it's the first genocide that's actually streaming. People can watch it and see it. And see, it's almost now was reporting that over 180,000 Palestinians been killed, mostly civilian and children. Americans sent 50,000 billion of weapons to Israel. Do you really think this is all to fight Hamas or fight the Palestinian resistance, or this is just bringing Cold War back and sending messages to Iran and Russia?
Well, the geopolitical strategy that the United States has been pursuing, which I just mentioned from the start, involves the use of proxy forces. And one of the reasons we use proxy forces is because it's politically possible that Americans won't care. So if you're using mercenaries or proxy forces, it's not like Vietnam. When you said nobody cares about international issues, well, that wasn't true during the Vietnam War. In the Vietnam War, because there was a draft and people were suffering, Americans were suffering the costs. Yes, they cared then. They absolutely voted about things like that on international issues in war. They don't care. And then the politicians know this. That's why they do. That's why they are waging war through the various methods that they are doing so in order to get full spectrum dominance over the world, and to the point where we're going up against nuclear superpowers. Now, you're right that the people can't say they don't know because it is streaming. That's actually also why, though, the government is now seeking to censor most of the social media. And the first one we saw was TikTok. TikTok had to go because one of the Israeli lobby people said, oh no, they're showing too much about the genocide in Gaza. So they had to get rid of TikTok. But they're doing it with, actually, they're even going after Twitter now. They're going after, the other one is Telegram. And the reason is because there was allowed to be freedom of speech and press on these social media. And yes, after a while, when people see this, they start to say we shouldn't be doing it. I will say that the people going in last night, there were, it wasn't a majority, but there were some that would give us secretly a thumbs up. So, and one of them even talked to us afterwards. But, when she went in, she gave us like, oh yeah, I kind of agree with you that we should stop the genocide. However, when she came out, she said exactly what you mentioned. She said, oh, but I'm going to vote for Angie Craig because genocide is just, she didn't say genocide. She said Israel is just one small issue and I care about the other issues more. And that's essentially what happens when you're waging proxy wars and nothing has a direct. Now, I will tell people, I try hard to explain this does have a direct effect on us. It's just that it's hard to witness. And one of the effects, again, is the money that is going into the now it's $35 trillion that has been spent basically since 9/11. Now, almost all of it's been spent since 9/11. And we're now updating our nuclear, all of our nuclear weapons, as well as the strategy. Russia just changed its nuclear strategy that I'm assuming, this is a guess, but I'm assuming they're going to allow for first strike on the U.S. And now the tension in the Ukraine. So this is having an impact on Americans. They just are oblivious to it because our media has been brainwashed by the politicians. In fact, I saw a clip yesterday where 200 of our mainstream media were getting training on quote unquote how to censor and call things disinformation. So it doesn't even matter if it's true or not. You can even cite government data and you will still be censored if they can call it malinformation or disinformation. And though our media is doing this, our media is working hand in glove with the war machine and whatever. So people are very oblivious to the costs. The blowback is what we would call it. The blowback of what we are doing is rather invisible. If they knew, even the shootings, all the shootings, and here locally, we had that car that drove into the Park Tavern and killed some people, wounded, hurt a lot of people. And why do we have this level of depression in the United States that is producing mass shootings and mass killings, as well as, by the way, a lot of suicide? People are taking more drugs. This guy was obviously probably under the influence of alcohol. So people are drugging themselves through alcohol or drugs. And you know why? It's because there's a certain mass depression that has fallen on the United States. How much violence can you take? It's really difficult to live in these times. Last night, talking to people, I said, it seems to me that we're living through the something like the Nazi Holocaust, where the so-called otherwise good Germans. So all the people going in to clap for Genocide Angie, all the people giving her thousands of dollars. And it seems to me this is like Nazi Germany, where people don't even understand what they're doing. They don't have, that was the case. People voted for Hitler. When you started off by talking about one of the main excuses for the Democrats, saying they're voting for Harris and Walz. Oh, well, Trump is terrible. He's a fascist. We can't let Trump win. That's called lesser evilism. And if you're a political expert, you will always do this. You're always going to create the enemy from your opponent. I mean, that's what's done in politics, although they've gone to extremes with Trump. So most of the people still to this day believe all the lies about Trump. Number one, that he was involved with Russia. That was a complete lie. We impeached the president based on lies, and they've been debunked now But still, the Democrats don't believe that. They still believe in those lies because that was their group. Anyways, lesser evilism is the problem. And I said to somebody last night, I said, well, that's how Hitler got elected, because Hitler said he was fighting the terrible communists. And so if you were in Germany at the time, your choice was, oh, I'm not going to vote for the terrible communist. I have to vote for Hitler. He's the lesser of two evils. It was the same argument that we're using now to vote for, by the way, a complete continuation of an ongoing, unsuccessful wars, very unsuccessful. I mean, Afghanistan, Iraq, they've all been revealed as based on lies, very unsuccessful. And now the genocide on Palestine. And the truth is, people can't understand this. We're going to continue this. If you vote for Harris and Walz, both of them, just like Angie Craig, they're careful in how they talk. They say they're trying to get a ceasefire, but that isn't true. They pretend to be sympathetic, but it's not true. They're giving a green light to Israel to continue this and basically leading us into World War III.
Look at the language Harris is using, talk about the horrible Israel has the right to defend itself, and the horrible mass terrorist organization cannot control Gaza. In the same token, when she is trying to set herself apart from Biden, she will say the suffering of the Palestinian, the devastation of the Palestinian, the killing of the Palestinian, but she never mentioned who is doing the suffering and devastation and the killing. It's like the Palestinians just die from a natural disaster or something. So at the end of the day, as I was talking to Professor David Schultz, he said, whoever is going to win this election, the one who is supporting Israel. So what are we doing? I mean, both of them support Israel, and talk about the Green Party and Jill Stern. I like what she's saying. She's saying, and she's the only Jewish on the ticket, but with our two-party system and the money is put in it, she has no chance. So the issue is really the two-party system and the money invested in politics and the lobby, and it takes about it costs about $30 billion in an election cycle, $30 billion. And as David Schultz was saying, it's only about 150,000 votes that they're going to tip the scale one way or another. 150,000 out of whatever 80 million, whatever votes. So my response was, why don't we just every 4 years we take those 150,000 people to fine restaurants, buy them a dinner, and we kind of talk her over, and we'll pick up the election and save all these billions of dollars. So it's not what Harris is saying, or Biden is saying, or the other is saying. It is really a structural problem in our political system.
Yeah, you're right. The two-party system, which is almost, it seems like it's become deliberate ploy to divide and conquer. And to the extent that you're right, that there's a small number of votes in only a few states that are quote unquote the swing states that matter. Yeah, I mean, I remember Democrat loyalists who actually the few who care about an issue instead of just a leader. I'm voting for my leader, like the old psychology tests.
What a concept.
But the few that did care about an issue, they would say, well, if you're in a state and not a swing state, yes, vote your conscience. Then you can vote your conscience. But if you're in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, whatever these 5 states are, then you have to vote for the lesser evil. And so that was the ploy. And that's the only thing we're left with. The system is so corrupt right now in terms of money. There was an excellent young lady who had gone to the Democrat National Convention. She was only probably around 30 years old. She'd been working as a volunteer for the Democrats for 15 years. And she got 1 million plus views. And she came out and she said, I just can no longer do this because I was so disappointed to hear nothing except bromides. They're trying to brand Kamala Harris as joy. You talk about fighting for democracy. Now they're trying to say she's got joy. Oh my gosh. I mean, but these wordsmithers, unfortunately, you're right. The people fall for it. And when they're divided into two parties, they don't see a choice. And so, yeah, we're stuck. We're really stuck. As long as AIPAC, and by the way, this local Congresswoman here, Angie Craig, got millions from the Israel lobby. So when you take that money from them, and even good candidates starting off, they want money. They have to have money. They can't win without at least a few $1 million because you have to run ads on TV to look like you're tough, etc. And if you can't get those millions, I got a lecture from Rahm Emanuel, who was the gatekeeper, neocon warmonger at the time. He said, I don't care what you think. What you think doesn't matter. It's only about getting money. That was the first words out of his mouth when I ran in 2005. First words out of his mouth. By the way, to Tim Walz also. Tim Walz and I got the same lecture. And Tim Walz had less money running for Congress in the south of Minnesota than I did at the time. So he probably got an even harsher lecture than I did. But the lecture was, we don't care what you think. Thinking doesn't matter. All we care about is money. And that's what it is. And so when you take that money, you're bought and sold. And by the way, the war machine and the Israel lobby, these are the special interests that have all the money. Ilhan Omar got into terrible trouble for even mentioning this problem, this money corruption. She just mentioned it briefly once and they were after her because you can't. But the Democrat, I don't know what the name of that video is, but it's an excellent video because it was a Democrat volunteer.
Coleen, it's not all AIPAC, and I think we let AIPAC to play that role because Israel is our agent in the area, as you say, approximately, and then we have to justify our support with a false narrative about AIPAC and how powerful AIPAC is. But if Israel in the last year or so couldn't even achieve any goals of that war, only killing and devastation and getting everybody to criticize and involved and war now is in Lebanon and Iran, in Yemen, and now fight over Philadelphia border with Egypt. My prediction is at some point we're going to have to raise the question, is it worth it to have this unwavering support to an apartheid state like the one in South Africa? We supported for 80 years, whatever, until it was not viable anymore. Do you think at some point Israel, apartheid, Israel, I'm not talking the people live there, they live there, but the apartheid system at some point has to go. And instead of what this news about this new former Israeli ambassador is met Trump, and he's talking about one-state solution, just annex everything, and Israel, the Palestinian will be like Puerto Rico or something in his book. And this is the biblical narrative. That's his argument that we have to follow. So this is all, this is the two thugs solution, not the two-state solution, that you impose that on people. But it seems like the role of AIPAC is overblowing. But
I agree and I slightly disagree. The relationship between Israel and the United States has changed in the 70 years. When it started out in the early years, it was of benefit, geopolitical benefit to the United States to have what they called the stationary air carrier in the Mideast. And this was for purposes of the proximity to oil, to Saudi Arabia, to
and
the rest of
actually, Netanyahu says that in 2007.
Yeah, that's not
as a mighty air carrier for the Americans.
That's right. It was not a secret. And yes, it was admitted that this was of benefit to the United States. But over time, that changed. That apartheid, and this is not, I mean, we had the earlier bombings of Gaza and, 1,000 people killed and stuff. And as time has gone on, more and more people are, and it's not just in the United States, it's around the world, to the point where the United Nations now has, a huge majority, except for one veto in the United States. This is tarnishing. It's not a benefit to the United States anymore. It's become a net risk, and it's tarnishing the United States. And here's the part I could slightly disagree. When we were, we would say that the dog has, his tail. And now the tail, which is Israel, is wagging the dog. And that is through the corruption of it might be politically, incorrect, but it's true. I'm telling you, I live this. And the money comes from the big, it comes from some other big corporate sources as well. But the one big source of money is from Israel lobby. It's not just AIPAC alone. AIPAC has got a whole bunch of other Israel lobbies. And because they don't even have to sign as a foreign agent. Every other foreign entity, if they'd be giving a campaign money, can you imagine if we had a Russian group that was exempted from having to file, and they were giving millions of dollars to all of our candidates? My goodness, we would be crazy if this was happening. And yet it's gotten completely normalized. And it got normalized because initially it was of some benefit to the United States. It's no longer of any benefit. It's really hurting the United States. And if we get drawn, Israel's trying to draw the United States into a larger war in the Mideast, on Iran, on Lebanon. This is going to be the worst quagmire, worse than Vietnam, maybe worse than Ukraine, worse than Afghanistan. But we just can't stop. And this is the people in politics. They're prisoners of this lobby. Why can't they see this? Because independent observers, if you're just I will say, I don't know about David Schultz exactly, but I know a lot of experts who are just independent. They're not a part of this. And it's easy to see that this geopolitical situation. But you know what? The ones in Washington can't see it. Why are they blinded? They're blinded because of the money, the millions of dollars that go into these campaigns. It's absolute corruption. And it's not one party. It's not one party. The smartest thing that Israel does is they hedge their bets on both parties. They own both parties.
Retired FBI agent, former Minneapolis Division Legal Counsel who wrote the whistleblower memo regarding 9/11, Coleen Rowley. Thank you so much, and you're doing the good work.
Thank you, and I think people are slowly waking up. I just hope it's not too late. But thank you again.
Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the day.